Hello, my friend, and welcome to a gentle bedtime story, a tale woven from the threads of dreams and tranquility. Take a deep breath, feel the softness of the pillow beneath your head, and let your mind drift with the whispers of the night. Tonight, we'll journey to a faraway land where cats don't just catch mice, but can also wear splendid boots, where small dreams can lead to great things, and intelligence can change destiny. It's a story about a curious friendship and an unexpected journey. Let my voice guide you into a peaceful dream where all wonders can come true.
Once upon a time, in a small village nestled beside a clear stream and golden rice fields, lived a kind old miller. He possessed a modest but useful inheritance, a tall windmill where grains were transformed into fine flour, a diligent donkey always ready to carry goods, and a tiny cat with quick, intelligent eyes and whiskers that twitched with curiosity. Every day in the miller's life passed simply. The windmill's steady creak in the wind, the donkey's clop-clop along the village path, and the cat's soft meows echoed in their cozy home. The miller's 3 sons also grew up amidst these familiar sounds, learning to work and live a simple life. When the old miller passed away, his 3 sons divided the inheritance. The eldest son, tall and strong, inherited the sturdy windmill. The second son, a kind and hard-working man, received the reliable donkey. But the youngest son, the youngest of them all, with a dreamy heart, was left with nothing but the cat. The youngest son sat sadly by the window, looking out at the golden fields. He sighed, muttering to himself, "I got the worst part. My eldest brother has the windmill to make a living. My second brother has the donkey to travel around. But me, what can I do with this miserable cat? At most, I could skin it to make a pair of fur gloves, and that would be the end of my inheritance." His voice was mournful, filled with a vague worry about the future. Can you imagine a tiny cat curled up next to its master, but its ears were perked up, listening to every one of those sorrowful confessions? This cat was no ordinary cat. Having heard the whole story from its master, the cat slowly stretched, stood up on its hind legs, and then spoke, its voice clear and calm, like a small wind chime. "Master," the cat said, looking straight into its owner's eyes, "you don't need to kill me and make a pair of shoddy gloves. Just hire a cobbler to make me a pair of boots so I can walk around town. Then people will notice me, and I'm sure you'll gain respect and prosper." The miller's son, the youngest, was utterly astonished to hear his cat speak. He had never imagined a cat could talk, let alone speak with such confidence. Just then, by chance, a shoemaker was passing by. The young man waved the shoemaker over, hiring him to make the cat a beautiful, well-fitting pair of boots. When the boots were finished, the cat slipped them on, the shiny brown boots embracing its nimble paws. Then, the cat took a sack, filled it with fragrant barley, and carefully tied the mouth of the sack so the barley wouldn't spill out. After that, the cat hoisted the sack onto its shoulder, walked out the door, moving on 2 legs like a little nobleman. Each of the cat's steps was confident and unhurried, as if it were born to wear boots. And so Puss in Boots, with his brand new boots and a sack over his shoulder, began his journey. Puss in Boots, with his brand new boots and a sack full of barley on his shoulder, confidently stepped into the forest. He knew that to change his master's fate, he needed to devise a truly clever plan. At that time, the king of the kingdom was very fond of partridges, but partridge meat had become extremely rare and precious. These birds were very timid. A small sound would send them flying off, making it impossible for any hunter to approach them. The cat, with his keen insight, seized upon this fact. He found an open clearing in the forest, carefully untied the knot of his sack. He scattered some fragrant barley around, creating a trail leading into the mouth of the sack. Then he concealed the trap string among the lush green grass, and he himself hid in a nearby bush, patiently lying in wait. Not long after, innocent partridges, lured by the scent of barley, flew down. They pecked at the grains around the sack, gradually moving inside. When enough birds were in the sack, the cat swiftly hoisted the sack of birds onto his shoulder and headed straight for the king's palace. Upon reaching the palace gates, the guards shouted, "Halt! Where are you going?" The cat replied calmly and concisely, "To see the king." Another guard, seeing a cat daring to say it wanted to see the king, blurted out, "Are you mad? Since when do cats come to see the king?" But another guard interjected, his voice curious, "Let him in. The king is often sad. Who knows, his purring and ridiculous antics might cheer his majesty up." And so the cat was allowed to enter. Standing before the king, the cat paused. He stood tall on his hind legs, bowed respectfully, and then spoke, his voice polite and confident. "Your Majesty, my master, the Marquis of Carabas," the cat cleverly invented a noble and very long title, "sends his respectful greetings and humbly offers your Majesty these freshly snared partridges." The plump, delicious partridges delighted the king. He was overjoyed by this unexpected and unique gift. Never had he eaten such delicious partridges. The king immediately ordered the cat to be allowed into the treasury to take as much gold as he could carry in his sack. The king declared, "Be sure to take that gold back to your master and tell him I thank the Marquis of Carabas for the gift."
Meanwhile, the poor youngest son of the miller was still sitting gloomily by the window. He held his head, thinking, "I wonder if the cat will manage anything, or if I've just wasted all my money buying him boots." Just as his master was lost in sorrowful thoughts, the cat walked in, placed the heavy sack on the floor, untied the knot, and emptied glittering gold coins right in front of his master. "My dear master," the cat said, his voice full of pride, "this is a small compensation for the cost of the boots. The king also sent his regards and thanks to you, master." The miller's son was overjoyed by his new fortune. He was in no mood to ask why such marvelous things were happening. The cat, while taking off his boots, recounted the entire story to his master, then added, "Now you have enough money, but that's not all. Tomorrow morning I'll put my boots on again, and you'll be even richer than you are now. I also told the king that you are a marquis." The next day, just as the cat said, Puss in Boots put his boots on again, went hunting, and brought the king a sack full of partridges. Everything proceeded smoothly like this. Every day the cat presented birds to the king, and every day the cat brought gold home. Gradually, the cat became beloved by the king as a trusted confidant, freely entering and leaving the palace without question, strolling at will through the magnificent halls. Can you feel the warmth and peace in the youngest son's small house? From a poor young man, he now had money, and more importantly, he had a loyal and intelligent friend like Puss in Boots. Day after day, Puss in Boots continued to bring partridges to the king and gold to his master. He was trusted and beloved by the king, moving freely within the magnificent palace like a special courtier. One day, Puss was warming himself by the king's kitchen fire when he overheard the coachman muttering.
The coachman grumbled, "I wish the king and princess would hurry up and finish their outing. I'm itching to go to the pub and play cards to my heart's content, but I have to drive them to the lake for a stroll." Upon hearing this, Puss in Boots shrewdly recognized a grand opportunity. He tiptoed home, seeking out his master. "If you truly wish to become a marquis and grow rich," Puss said, "you must come with me to the lake and jump in for a swim." The miller's youngest son, though not fully understanding what was about to happen, trusted the cat's intelligence. He said nothing, quietly following Puss to the clear lake. He undressed and splashed into the cool water. Puss quickly grabbed his master's clothes, hiding them in a very secret spot. No sooner had he hidden them than a splendid carriage approached. It was the king's carriage, carrying the beautiful princess who was enjoying a lakeside stroll. Puss immediately cried out, his voice sounding truly desperate and pathetic. "Oh dear, your majesty, my master, the Marquis of Carabas, was bathing in the lake when a thief came and stole all his clothes from the shore. Now how is my master to come out? Staying too long in the water, he'll surely catch a cold and die." Hearing this, the king quickly ordered the carriage to stop. He instructed a courtier to immediately return to the palace and fetch a luxurious set of the king's own clothes for the marquis.
The miller's son, in the king's splendid clothes, looked truly dashing and noble. The king, who still believed the marquis was the one who had trapped and offered him the rare partridges, treated the young man with great favor. The king invited him to sit in the carriage with him and the princess. The princess, for her part, had no reason to be displeased. On the contrary, she found the marquis to be a charming, handsome, and utterly delightful young man. The princess's eyes looked upon the marquis with great fondness and admiration. Puss in Boots, with his boots on, continued his journey ahead of the king's carriage. He ran to a vast meadow where over 100 people were busily scything grass. Puss asked them, "Farmers, whose field is this?" The farmers replied, "It belongs to the sorcerer who possesses many dark arts." Puss in Boots then instructed them, his voice serious but not at all frightening. "Listen to me, good people. The king's carriage will soon pass through this area. If the king asks whose field this is, remember to answer that it belongs to the Marquis of Carabas. If you don't say exactly that, well, you'll be in a bit of trouble." Puss continued on, reaching an expansive barley field stretching as far as the eye could see. There, over 200 reapers were diligently harvesting grain. Puss asked, "Reapers, whose grain is this?" They replied, "It belongs to the sorcerer who possesses many dark arts." Puss again instructed, "Listen to me, good people. The king's carriage will soon pass through this area. If the king asks whose grain field this is, remember to answer that it belongs to the Marquis of Carabas. If you don't say exactly that, well, many unpleasant things will happen." Finally, Puss in Boots arrived at a vast, beautiful forest where over 300 people were felling large oak trees, splitting timber, and gathering firewood. Puss asked, "Woodcutters, whose forest is this?" They replied, "It belongs to the sorcerer who possesses many dark arts." Puss again gave similar instructions and pushed ahead of the king's carriage. The king's carriage soon reached the meadow of the farmers.
With his peculiar gait, strolling leisurely as one with boots, Puss continued his journey. Everyone watched him with respect and a touch of apprehension. A moment later, Puss in Boots arrived at a colossal castle. It was the sorcerer's castle. Puss boldly walked straight in, making his way to stand before the sorcerer. The sorcerer looked at Puss with disdain, asking what he wanted. Puss bowed politely, then said, "I've heard that you can transform into any animal you wish, at your whim. Turning into a dog, a fox, or even a wolf, those things I can certainly believe. But I trust you cannot possibly transform into an elephant. Therefore, I came here to see with my own eyes if it's true." The sorcerer, with his boastful nature, scoffed and said, "Oh, for me, that's a trivial matter." And in an instant, the sorcerer transformed into a gigantic elephant, standing towering in the room. Puss in Boots feigned astonishment and admiration. "That is indeed very impressive, but can you transform into a lion?" The sorcerer replied, his face full of self-satisfaction. "Such a trivial matter. What's remarkable about that?" No sooner had he spoken than an imposing lion with a thick mane and powerful eyes stood before Puss. Puss in Boots feigned terror, crying out softly, "Such a thing I have truly never heard of nor seen. Not even in my dreams have I ever witnessed it. But if you were to transform into a tiny creature like a mouse, then that would truly be divine skill. Surely you are far more talented than any other sorcerer in the world, but transforming into a mouse is probably something you cannot do." Hearing the sweet flattery, the sorcerer was immensely pleased. He chuckled and said, "Oh, my dear cat friend, even that I can do." And in an instant, in the blink of an eye, the majestic lion transformed into a tiny mouse, scurrying about the room. Puss in Boots, quick as lightning, immediately pounced on the mouse and devoured it whole. Thus the sorcerer vanished from this world forever, and no one ever knew what happened.
While Puss in Boots completed his plan at the sorcerer's castle, the king's carriage, along with the prince and princess, was drawing near. As they arrived at the vast meadow, the king looked out and asked, filled with admiration, "Whose meadow is this?" The farmers, remembering Puss's instructions, replied in unison, their voices clear, "Your Majesty, it belongs to his lordship, the Marquis of Carabas." The king nodded, smiling as he said to the prince, "Marquis, you have a beautiful estate." After that, the group continued on, reaching the expansive grain field, stretching out like a golden carpet. The king asked again, "Whose grain fields are those, good people?" The reapers replied, their voices also very clear, "Your Majesty, they belong to his lordship, the Marquis." The king exclaimed with delight, "Ah, Marquis, the land is not only fertile, but also so vast and boundless." Finally, the entourage reached the vast forest, where ancient oak trees reached skyward. The king asked, "Whose forest is that, good people?" The woodcutters replied, their tone full of respect, "Your Majesty, it belongs to his lordship, the Marquis." The king's surprise and admiration continued to grow. He turned to the prince, his eyes filled with awe. "Marquis, you must be incredibly wealthy. I'm not sure I even possess such a vast and beautiful forest." When the carriage reached the colossal castle, Puss in Boots was already waiting at the foot of the drawbridge. As soon as the carriage halted, Puss nimbly jumped down, ran to open the carriage door, and said, his voice brimming with pride, "Your Majesty, you have arrived at the castle of my master, the Marquis. That is a lifelong honor for my master." The king descended from the carriage, utterly astonished by the magnificent edifice before his eyes.
This castle was larger and more beautiful than even the king's own palace. The prince, with a confident expression and noble demeanor, led the princess into the reception hall. The vast room gleamed, sparkling with light reflected from gold objects, precious jewels, and rare gems displayed everywhere. The princess, who had been captivated by the Marquis's handsomeness and charm from their very first meeting, was now completely won over by his wealth and vast lands. Her heart fluttered. And so, the princess became engaged to the Marquis of Carabas. And when the king passed away, the Marquis of Carabas ascended to the throne, becoming a just and benevolent king. The king did not forget the contributions of his loyal and intelligent cat. He appointed Puss in Boots as Grand Vizier, the highest and most noble position in the court. And so, Puss in Boots, the clever cat with his boots, helped his master find happiness and glory. Now you too can gently close your eyes. Let the images of the magnificent castle, the lush green fields, and the wondrous tales seep into your dreams. Feel the lightness spreading throughout your body, and let your mind rest, preparing for a new day filled with energy. Good night, and see you in our next gentle stories.